and welcome!
We are having a cozy rainy day at the cottage, and we are going to have a Q&A for you.
Yay, because we are celebrating Cobweb Cottage's centennial, and we've gotten a lot of questions over the years about what it's like for us to live in a 100-year-old cottage that is beside a historic cemetery in the Sleepy Hollow countryside. So we're excited to get into that soon. But first, just in case you're new here, we wanted to introduce ourselves. I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Jonas.
And this is It's a Charming Life. We really hope you stick around and subscribe for all the cozy cottage content.
Yeah, so why don't you pour yourself a cup of tea and let's answer some questions, shall we?
Sounds good. Cheers. So why don't we first give a little bit of context about what our life was like before we moved into the cottage. So we had been traveling and we didn't have a place to live. It was a very challenging time in our lives, and we only had a couple suitcases full of clothes with us, and we were just trying to figure out where we belong. We want to share some old vlog footage that we have as we answer some of the questions because it is a part of our story. It'd be a little tricky to look back at some of the footage for me, especially, I think, because I remember how I was struggling with some of my mental health and also was going through some health problems at the time. So please be kind as we go down this memory lane together.
So we are soon going to answer the questions that you guys sent to us about how it is to live in a 100-year-old cottage next to a historic cemetery. We got over 100 questions that we have gone through, and before we go into that, we're going to show you a little backstory that is made in our own charming way. So why don't we roll the clip? Wasn't that fun? I hope you like the silent short film that we created. That is perfect intro for the first question.
Yes. And the first question is, what brought us to Sleepy Hollow, and was the cottage the first place that we lived in New York?
No, it wasn't the first place we had in New York. Because when we first moved to America, we started out in California, your home state.
Yep.
It's a really beautiful state. And the first job I had there was as a professional pumpkin carver. And it was pretty cool. And the studio I worked for was based in New York. And when things got a little hard, we had a hard time to find a place to live, we decided to try to volunteer and traveling and relocate to the East Coast. And knowing in my head that there might be a possibility for me to work as a pumpkin carver this next fall in New York, that was what led us to Sleepy Hollow.
Yeah, pretty much. There's a lot of more to the story, but basically, yes, that is how we ended up in New York. And we never expected to stay here this long. We've been here 5 years now. The cottage wasn't the first place we lived in New York, because when we first came, we found a room to rent in this Hudson Valley, Westchester area. It was very interesting. There was squirrels in the ceiling when we would hear them running across as we were sleeping. It was okay at first, but then once pumpkin season was over, we were kind of torn about moving on or staying. So on one hand, we were looking up volunteering possibilities, and on the other hand, we were looking for like apartments and stuff. Also because the room we were renting, some crazy stuff started to happen.
Well, we woke up one night smelling the fragrance of smoke, and that calls for a warning bell.
Yes.
And it was this self-cleaning oven that someone had started in the middle of the night and went to bed unattended, and it was when we decided to hand in our 30-day notice because we wanted to move on and find something that we could call our own more.
And we had nowhere to go and only a couple weeks, and we figured we had been through worse situations.
So the next question is, how did you find the cottage, and do we rent it or own it?
We found it through Craigslist, out of all places.
Good old Craigslist.
We were looking for apartments, but one day I came across a listing that just said, small cottage for rent.
We should mention that we had dreams of cottages.
We did.
Before we ended up here in New York.
Yeah, so that's why the listing caught our eye right away. It didn't have any information about it or pictures. It just had a phone number and said to call for more information. So we did. The landlord told us that when he found out we were a couple, that it really wasn't meant for more than one person. It's a little too small. But we still had no idea what it looked like. So he agreed to meet us. We came one evening after dark, so it was kind of hard to get an idea of what the area looked like. But as soon as we came inside, we thought it looked huge for us.
It was a mansion. After what we've been through, it was a real castle. He mentioned that almost like as if he was worried what he was gonna say, he mentioned it's an old graveyard next doors. Instantly I felt pain in my shoulder, which was Lindsay's nails digging deep into my arm of excitement. I think we knew then that this is perfect for us.
And we came back a few days later to see it in the daylight, and we were in love. So actually the landlord had told us that there was a couple other people who had already applied for the cottage in front of us. Got a little afraid, and after everything we'd been through, we really thought, oh, this probably isn't going to work out. But we really connected with him as we were talking. Yeah. And we found out later that he ended up giving us preference, even though we had really not great rental history and everything. You know, we had a hard time getting on our feet.
We didn't have any credit score.
Yeah, we had barely been working ourselves up out of this situation we had been in, and I think he felt like we were the right people to live here.
Yeah.
So we're so grateful that he took a chance on us. The next question is, did it speak to you when you saw it and you knew the cottage was going to be your home? I remember you being a little skeptical. Our first impression was that it looked a little run down.
Yeah.
And it was.
I should mention that it was in the winter time when there was no snow, and you know how everything can look a little bleak at those moments.
The landlord knew that it needed to be painted in, like he said, when the weather got better in the spring. So our first image of it was like, oh, this gray cottage that is almost the same color as like the headstones in the cemetery. Like, even though the color really needed to be painted, we could see the potential. But it did, it did look a little like, oh wow, it really needs some love. But I think so did we. So it was kind of a perfect match.
We needed some love too. That is the reason that we paint the cottage in the postcards you might have seen. We always paint the cottage grey, because that was the original color that we still love so much.
Next question is, how does the landlord feel about the house being on social media?
He's not really on social media. One time actually we had a picnic outside the cottage, and he stopped by, and we were actually taking some product photos for the current postcard that I created at the time. And he just burst out like, you guys should do a postcard. And that was exactly what we were working with then. So we gave him a postcard. He's kind of like a man of few expressions. He's like very laid back, and he's like, oh, thank you. He see all our weird things that we do.
And he's totally fine with it. Actually, I think he secretly wants to join us. We've offered a few times.
Yeah.
And he respects our privacy and doesn't. Yeah. So he's really nice.
Yeah. After being homeless, did it give you both more sense of stability? If you had never found a cottage, was there an alternative place?
The last option we really had was the cottage, and if that didn't come through, I honestly don't know where we'd be right now. As far as stability, it was hard to get used to at first, actually. We were like, oh, putting down roots and owning more things than just our clothing and buying plates. And, we had been traveling so light. It was a very strange experience, but also very nice to be able to just have somewhere to stop, feel like we're not running anymore.
Yeah, because I think we were a little bit insecure that, is this our home? For how long? And do we have to start looking again all of a sudden?
Because as an international couple, we just had never felt at home for the first 5 years of our marriage. This was our first real home.
So I have another question for you, Lindsay. And that is, upon arrival, what was the first thing you needed to do the most to make the cottage feel like a home? And how quickly did the cottage respond to your loving attention?
When we first moved in, it was a little bit of chaos. I mean, in one way we were used to traveling, right? So we just kind of came in here and had all our suitcases and clothes, but it was winter, so there was like just stuff everywhere, coats and scarves, like we were just trying to keep warm. And it looked crazy in here for a while.
Yeah.
We quickly realized, we can't keep leaving out of suitcases. We need furniture. I guess what really made it feel at home, though, was like, I remember the first weekend we had here, it snowed, and it just made everything feel extra cozy and comforting. And we started to use the kitchen, and we've never really had a great kitchen before, and I think you baked like a mud pie or something, and everything was kind of like on the floor, or because we didn't have like extension cords and all these things yet, so it's just like this really funny memory.
Yeah, we didn't have much at all, because the landlord gave us a small table for the kitchen. Really fun to see how far we have come with all the furniture and all that stuff.
I remember like the fridge felt ginormous.
Yeah, that felt like a room in itself.
What do you think about how quickly did the cottage respond to our loving attention?
It's like a plant that long have been neglected, and when you put some new soil in it, you first don't see any flowers on it, but you can feel that it likes it, and things start to happen under the surface.
Oh yeah.
And I feel that was what happened. It wasn't fully furnished yet, but something was there, like a happiness. How long did it take for you to feel truly at home and furnish it from nothing?
It took, though, from like literally sleeping just on the mattress on the floor to like having almost all the furniture, took like a good 4 or 5 months to find.
One reason that we took our time furnishing it was that we didn't just run to one store and get a whole set. That we knew that we want to look for the right furnitures on estate sales and flea markets and stuff, and it is a job in itself to like it can take a year before you're done.
We were going every single weekend, any chance we got. We didn't have curtains, nothing. We ended up finding this one bedroom set, and I was really excited. We rented a U-Haul and everything to pick it up, and once we got it in here, what happened?
Well, it felt just too big then. When it was in the room, the room shrinked.
We had that other bedroom set for like a month before, and I was searching all the time for a better one, and finally one day this listing popped up. I think it was on Facebook Marketplace, and it was like the perfect scenario. It was the Jonas's desk, a side table, 2 dressers, and a headboard, and I think it was only $150, and it was like this. The furniture's probably 1930s or 40s. All of a sudden, what happened?
Well, it just felt like a different home.
Next question: are you allowed to paint inside or out, and decorate any way you would like to? Thankfully, our landlord's really awesome. One of my first questions was, can we put stuff on the walls? After 5 years of marriage, we had never even hung up like a wedding photo before.
It's really nice to have paintings and stuff on the walls.
Yeah, we've been able to hang up your artwork. Yeah. And over time, we thrifted a lot of frames. You made fun of me sometimes because you're like, you have a frame addiction.
I know.
It was just so nice.
I feel like now I have that. I would like to ask you, because I feel that this is directed to you. Where do you get your decoration ideas from?
Pretty much from the beginning, we knew that the cottage was speaking to us to just kind of have that vintage fairy tale vibe, but like a little cozy, spooky vibes in there too, since we're in the Sleepy Hollow area. Of course, the seasons really inspire us.
I would also say literature.
Yes.
Because we like to decorate with books, old books.
I could talk all day about decorating. Yeah. So, Jonas, what is the most unusual animals we've seen around the cottage? Dear little cobweb critters?
Yeah. The first one we saw was the Tibby.
The chipmunk.
The chipmunk.
That lives in the stone wall between the cemetery and the cottage.
And we also have a lot of kind of nice squirrels.
Yeah, all different squirrels.
I mean, they are very common.
Yeah,
but
deer.
Yeah, deer. But the most unusual one, for me at least, was probably a skunk. Because I never seen one in real life.
The most unusual thing we've kind of seen is one day we were inside and we heard this very strange noise, and we're like, what is that? We look outside and there was a wild turkey family that was just crossing over our yard area to the graveyard. We can see through our kitchen window the graveyard, and we saw the family and the little baby turkeys running after the mom through the headstones, and I just thought, that's not something you see every day.
No, not at all.
And it felt like something out of Over the Garden Wall.
How did you name the cottage?
So the cottage name came to us after a while.
Which is Cobweb Cottage.
Yes. We moved in the winter, and it wasn't until like the summer that we started to realize, oh, wow, there's a lot of spiders that come inside. And at first, kind of freaked us out a little bit, not gonna lie. But over time, we really have made our peace with the spiders, and actually I kind of find them, it's kind of cozy that they have their little corners, and they actually help us out by catching other flies. And we do really have to keep up on the cobwebs though. In the summertime, I have to be dusting like at least once a week or it gets a little out of control. And that's when it hit me one day as I was dusting, and I was like, Cobweb Cottage. That's the name. That is perfect. And it just, to us, kind of represents not just the dusting, but that it's a vintage cottage, that it's next to a cemetery. It just fits perfectly.
Yeah, but it was how we felt when we got here, that it was a little forgotten.
Yeah.
It needed a fresh coat of paint, and it was in itself a little cobweb.
So, have you connected well with the local Sleepy Hollow community since you moved?
We are very private, naturally.
Homebodies?
Yeah, we like to be home. However, I feel like we have made many nice connections.
thanks to your artwork, I mean, you were painting Sleepy Hollow stuff before we even moved here back in California. It's another crazy story. So how everything just connects for us.
Yeah, I feel like my artwork have been a good icebreaker and opened up doors for connections.
Yeah, so we started to get to know some of the shop owners that carry your artwork at Bella's Boutique and then at Horse Feathers Restaurant.
We got one question about holidays. Do we get lonely at holidays?
It does sometimes. Our birthdays and Halloween are really close together, so it can be a little sad around those times and Christmas. And your family from Sweden hasn't been able to visit us here yet. But since we are so close to New York City, we do get people coming to visit the area. Usually once or twice a year, somebody will be in the area and we either go to New York City and meet them, or they want to come up to Sleepy Hollow and we show them around. And then my family's been able to come visit a few times. So between that, like, we, you know, it feels like we see people enough that we're not too lonely. But we've just really learned over the years of spending Christmas by ourselves, and that you just have to make our own traditions.
That's a big help, because it's easy to get stuck in your childhood traditions, and of course that you miss everyone then.
We kind of have been over the years building memories and that kind of cozy holiday feeling around the cottage. It's taken some time.
And actually some tradition that we came up with has been reaching to my family in Sweden now.
That's true.
Yeah, and that's really fun.
The next question, does living in a tiny cottage make you want to go outside more, or does it cause you to prefer to stay in and be cozy, depending on the season?
I have no problem to do both. Because I see like to have my own garden is a room in itself, but outdoors. So it's kind of really nice if you have been inside for a while to just go out and spend time in that room, if you know what I mean.
I mean, for myself, I can end up staying inside for a couple days on end without even realizing it, kind of go into hibernation mode. And also, I've talked before about how I struggle with seasonal affective disorder, and I can get really sad in the winter time, but cottages really help me get through a lot of that. So
yeah,
it's been a great comfort.
So Lindsay, does it get drafty in the winter? And do we get mice?
Yes, and yes.
Get mice in the attic. Can I imagine a family, a cozy family up there?
Yeah.
And especially when it's freezing cold outside, you don't have the heart to not have them there.
And they haven't come inside too much, actually. It does get pretty chilly in here sometimes. The windows are original, I think, and don't have great insulation, but we've gotten used to it.
This cottage is heated by oil, and believe me, I wish we had an open fire situation.
Yes, because if there's a power outage, we have absolutely no other way to heat the cottage, and we lose, we can't running water. We don't have running water, so we're pretty helpless when the power goes out, and it happens a couple times a year.
You learn to get stronger.
Yeah,
you get stronger for every outage. So I think it's high time to go into the history aspects of the cottage and cemetery.
Yes.
One that I like is, was this a caretaker's house for the cemetery, and is it a historic property?
We don't think it was a caretaker's house, unfortunately. That would make a really cool story. Only history we really know is what our landlord has told us. What he's told us is that the cottage was built very quickly as kind of like just a makeshift quick building for employees of the Reader's Digest.
And that explains the happiness and joy of books.
Of reading, yes.
That the cottage respond to our book.
I like to think so.
Yeah.
The founder of Reader's Digest was like a really wonderful man that everyone loved and respected, and he threw really great Christmas parties for all his employees, and everyone just loved him. It's really fun to think that somebody was living here that worked for Reader's Digest in the 1920s. We should really try to do more research, because how cool would it be to find like a really cool old black and white photo of the cottage.
And the people who lived here.
Yes. We don't know anything about the previous tenants. That was another question we got.
Yeah.
Except that our landlord lived here a little while when he bought it in the 80s. Crazy to think about how many people have lived in here. We don't know.
Yeah.
And what kind of people they were. We like to think that we're the favorite.
I hope so.
I don't know. The fun question was, have we ever found any treasures around the cottage or in the walls?
We haven't found anything inside. We did find a coin.
That was really cool. And I think it's from 1919. When we found that outside, really blew my mind because, of course, like we surround ourselves with vintage stuff all day. But to see that and find it and be like, wow, somebody who lived here had this in their pocket and dropped it in the garden.
I also found an old Pepsi bottle, and I think it was dated around the late 50s.
Yeah, that was really cool too.
Yeah, it was broken though. So here's another question about Sleepy Hollow. Since it's so touristy, especially the cemetery, do the tourists ever bother you?
We actually don't live right next to the Sleepy Hollow Cemetery. We live next to a smaller cemetery in Sleepy Hollow countryside.
And it's tons of old cemeteries around here.
The one next to us is from the 1700s. Right away when we first walked around in there, it just was a very special feeling. We like to call it that it's a very sincere cemetery. We only really see people walking their dogs, and that's always kind of funny. Like when sometimes I'll be outside having tea or putting laundry on the line, and somebody will be walking by and they see us, and we just kind of hi, wave.
But other than that, it's a very private cemetery.
The biggest question we get all the time is it haunted?
I have to say that it's not haunted. At least we haven't felt any weird vibes at all. We have just felt a peacefulness. However, some nights you can hear weird noises from the cemetery actually. However, it's more like a squirrel fight and one another coyote.
And when a coyote, they can sound like a baby that's crying and screaming.
Yeah.
And it's terrifying when you hear it in the middle of the night.
It can be how haunted you want it to be.
After all this time, we really feel connected to everyone buried there. I know it might sound a little weird.
I mean, connected, it's more like we feel the names are familiar and, we know when they were alive, like what year.
Like if we have flowers that we bought for the inside of the cottage or wildflowers that are kind of starting to wilt, we'll take them out into the cemetery and place them around and just try to remember their names and try to, even though we don't know all their stories, just try to remember their...
That is actually something I'm familiar with growing up in Sweden. We had All Hallows Eve, October 31st, where people go to the graves of their family members and place flowers and candles on the graves to just remember them and honor them. And I feel like that's a very nice tradition.
So we just feel like as long as we walk around and think about whoever was buried there, that in a way we're carrying on their story.
It's a few children grave there.
Yeah, especially the little ones.
And always so fascinating about the children from the Victorian era, how they were dressed and all that stuff. They very dapper, and it would just be fun to see photos of these people.
Yeah, we should really do some more research. We've met with the Historical Society before and found out some things, so it's really special. So sorry to disappoint anyone if you found out that it's not haunted. And I know it's like Sleepy Hollow, where the Headless Horseman haunts the land, but we've never seen anything. And which is funny though, because we have been in other historic houses before where I've definitely felt something, but I've never seen anything. We've never felt that here. It's just been, the longer we've lived here, the more peaceful it is. Okay, so let's move on to all the questions more about the cottage features and the layout. We get questions a lot about doing a tour, and we've never done one before because we're renting, and there's just I don't know, it feels like we're never done with decorating, and there's a lot of things that we can't fix to how we would want it to be. Hopefully one day we can do a full walkthrough tour and share more of everything. It would be fun, but right now it just feels like we're not ready for that yet. But we can kind of talk through the layout of the cottage.
Yeah.
So what is the square footage and like how many areas is there?
I think we figured out it's 520 square feet.
It's pretty tiny.
One kitchen and one living room and one bedroom and one bathroom.
We could start kind of talking about the kitchen because we got a question about has there been anything added on and like what's our favorite original feature. We think the kitchen might have been added on because I think our landlord told us that originally it was built as just kind of like a rectangle. So our favorite original feature is probably the front door, the original front door. So if you are facing the cottage, you see like the cute front porch, and it's so fun to imagine that maybe that Reader's Digest employee coming home from work and would come up and come through that original front door. And it's really cool because it has the original keyhole and a brass doorknob, but it's very hard to open.
I know. It has like you can tell the mechanisms are very old, but it's like a good centerpiece in the living room.
It's my favorite. Like I love to decorate in front of it, and it's just like such a cool focal point. So we go through the kitchen back door is where we come in now. And then when you come into the living room, what is the living room, Jonas? That is like our all-in-one.
I would say it's everything except the bedroom, but it's like the office, wardrobe.
Yeah, closet, and storage.
Yeah, storage, anything.
Where my vanity is, your art desk, where we watch TV, and where we work on our computers in this tiny little space.
Yeah, and I don't know if someone asked about how much storage we have. And maybe it's a good opportunity to go into that right now.
So we think somebody, our landlord or somebody else, built a makeshift closet space because this was like just one rectangle before, and so the closet is very tiny. It's not designed to be a closet at all. We share the closet for like our hanging. It's too small to keep all of our clothes out all year, so we have suitcases underneath the closet that we rotate all the clothes out seasonally.
And as far as all the seasonal decor we store them in boxes, and if you imagine being in the closet, it's a little opening where you can fit around like maybe 4 or 5 boxes. You have to be very smart with spaces in a little cottage.
What about your artwork and supplies and packing supplies?
Yeah, I have like my warehouse. I have 2 shelves that I dedicate to my warehouse, like prints and all this stuff, bookmarks and postcards. And that's about it. I
wonder if you guys are a little surprised at how small the areas are for how we ship out all your orders from his Etsy shop and where we make our videos and just how we live. It's really small and cozy. And the bedroom is really only big enough for a queen size mattress and just to barely be able to walk around it and like have bedside tables and a bookshelf.
Yeah.
And then there's the bathroom after that that's also very narrow. Okay, another question. Do you have an attic or basement for storage?
Yes, but we do have tenants up there. The little mouse family lives there. But it's really nothing up there. I know you guys have seen, you've been wondering about those tiny windows.
Above the porch.
Yeah.
Yeah. It looks like almost like a hayloft kind
of.
Yeah,
it looks like a
door.
Barn door.
With like the latch. And, well, our landlord did tell us there used to be a barn on the property that he had to tear down, and that people actually used to live there, he said.
So let's talk a little bit about the basement. No, it's more a dirt cellar, and what's down there is the oil burner.
And a lot of spiders.
A lot of them.
Have you ever heard of a cave cricket? I didn't know what those were before we moved here.
We are afraid of spiders. You don't have to look into what a cave cricket is.
Yeah. If we could do anything differently to the cottage, what would it be?
Something I would love is an open fire.
Yeah.
A fireplace.
That would be so nice. Maybe you notice we do not have a washer and dryer. And after many years of going to the laundromat, it would be really nice to have that here. I mean, we hand wash vintage linens and stuff in the summer, and I really wish we had just like a mud room or something where we could have the washer and dryer and a little more space so that when we come in we have places to put our boots and jackets so that we don't just come straight into the kitchen.
Mm.
Because we've had to get creative about like where do we put our boots when it's like snowing and we have to go put them in the bathtub.
It's more of a problem in the winter time.
Yeah. I would love to have like reclaimed wood floors, or I wonder if there's anything underneath the floor tiles. Because I hate the flooring in the kitchen. I don't know, it looks like it's from the 80s or something.
It's probably from the 80s.
And it's really does not fit the style.
Is it like linoleum kind of style?
It's awful. We have carpet throughout the rest, and the bathroom tile isn't so bad. It's okay, but I would love to just
real wood.
Real wood and tile, like vintage looking tile would be in the bathroom, would be really nice. Mm. And there's something you've always been commenting about, because you always kind of make fun of our vintage couch that I love.
I love it. You know that. Yeah. But I'm pretty tall. Yeah. And I feel that, you can't really sit down and relax for a super long time. You can't like sink into the couch. Yeah. Sometimes you just want to be eaten by the couch.
And it would be really nice to have like one more little corner, like a little reading nook where we can have like a nice comfortable chair to read. Yeah. Because we don't really have any comfortable places to relax except the bed, really. You hanging in there, Jonas?
I hang in there.
Did you drink all your tea already?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I appreciate you guys hanging in there. We know it's kind of a lot of questions, but it's been really fun answering. Yeah. And we've saved a special few last ones to kind of wrap everything up. What is your favorite part of the cottage or cozy area?
I must say that I like my work desk where I do my art. It's like a little cozy corner I like.
But whenever I see you painting in your little corner with all your art supplies and stuff around you, sometimes it just hits me like, wow, like you create such beautiful artwork in such a tiny space. So I hope everyone can know that.
How about you? What's your favorite?
I really like the bookshelf in the bedroom. We've eventually gotten a handful of vintage books, and I don't know, at nighttime if we light a candle in there and we're reading in bed, the light flickering on all of the books just is really magical to me.
So Lindsay, have you had any thought of getting a pet?
Have I? I would love to have a Cobweb Cottage cat. I mean, the name itself is perfect. I love cats and I miss having them in my life. Up before COVID, we always were traveling a lot to family, especially spending several weeks in Sweden if we could. I'm hoping to at least start volunteering at a cat shelter here soon and maybe fostering first. We'll see. Okay, Jonas, what parts of the house inspire creativity? Is it hard for you to stay creative in a small space?
My art tend to be like more of the, not tiny, but small size. It's like a goldfish that has a small bowl will not grow. It will, it will keep the same size. My art is the size it is. Yeah. Because of the bowl I'm living in.
I like that.
So Lindsay, here's another question for you. Will you buy as your forever home? Or if you were to move again, what other areas would you like to live in?
We love this cottage so much. It's just become a part of who we are. And our channel has become all about our cottage life. And it's really hard to imagine anyone else ever living here. But we are just renting, and we don't know if we would ever be able to buy. But we would really hope that eventually, one day, somehow, we could do that. Even if this isn't our forever home, we'd love to be able to just maintain it, maybe as a art studio or something like that. I think it couldn't be our forever home because we would love to be able to live in Sweden partially if we could, and then there's, I'd love to be able to spend more time in California. But our dream house kind of situation, we would love to have more space one day for like on a farmhouse somewhere, maybe in the Hudson Valley or in New England. But it breaks my heart to think of anyone else living here. I love this question. Your quaint home is so enchanting and magical, surrounded by serenity, peace, and beauty. Has this enriched your lives?
We always wanted to live in a cottage, and we found out that the cottage life is is so like enriching in many ways, that you get closer to nature.
It's made us become a lot more conscious of our effect on the environment.
I feel also like how pet owners start to look like their pets. I feel like I start to look like the cottage.
Some people have said we look like Snow White and Prince Charming if they stayed at the dwarf's cottage, but if the cottage was next to a cemetery.
Yeah.
And that is like our dream aesthetic right there.
Have either of you changed since moving into the cottage? And did you discover something new about yourself, positive or negative?
I feel like the cottage was teaching us how to slow down, how to practice the art of slow living. Funny that once Cottagecore became a huge thing, like we'd already been doing it. I always had wanted to dress vintage, and I had gone through all my different phases before, and then when we finally moved here, it just was the perfect place for me to explore vintage fashion. And we've definitely evolved a lot since the people that you saw in the old footage, and it's just been an amazing place to find ourselves. I think when we were traveling a lot, we learned a lot about ourselves that way, but once we were able to just embrace the cottage life, I feel like we just got to be who we always wanted to really be. What is the smallest thing you are grateful for about the house that you're still grateful for so much later? What seemingly mundane things still make you smile?
The surrounding, like the little critters outside.
Never get tired of opening the door in the morning and just poking my head out and feeling, okay, what kind of day are we going to have at the cottage? Is it going to be warm or rainy, cozy?
And
is
what mood is the animals?
That too. And I just never get tired of feeling like Snow White when I am walking around in the garden.
So this is the last question.
It's a good one.
And it's been really fun to answer all these questions with you. And you guys sent us the most exciting and nice questions you ever could. And we are so grateful for that. Would you consider the cottage to be, at present, the best place or time in your lives? If you had to move, what would you take away from the experience living at the cottage?
I would definitely say this has been one of the happiest times in our lives. I might cry.
Here comes the waterworks.
Here it comes. Oh man. Just with everything we had been through together as a couple, it was just really hard to never feel like we belonged anywhere. And then it felt like the cottage was waiting for us at the perfect time.
Lindsay.
Thanks. It was just there for us when we really needed it, in a time of our lives when we had a lot of healing to do. And I will forever hold those memories and warm feelings in my heart that we had this opportunity.
Yeah, it's fun to think back on when you were in a hard situation and you dreamt of having a cottage. That when we were thinking those thoughts, this cottage was here waiting for us.
Yeah.
So you never know, like what your dream can be out there already waiting for you. So
it's so true.
I would like to encourage you that you should not give up or think that it's too silly dream or like impossible, because you can never know. Like right now, something can be out there waiting.
We always try to keep believing that dreams come true. If our story can encourage anyone that your dream house or dream whatever is out there, just to keep believing, and it will come at the right time.
Yeah.
And the other biggest takeaway is just being content with what you have. Like keep dreaming, but also be happy with what you have and thankful, and that gratitude can just take you places you'd never expect. So it's been so great celebrating the centennial of the cottage. Cheers to another 100 years of Cobweb Cottage, and thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed hearing everything. I think we left out a lot of details, actually, even though this was a long video.
I mean, we could talk forever. This could be like a movies, trilogies.
Let us know if there's any other video topics that you would like us to expand on in other videos.
So if you like this kind of topic of cottage life and slow living, I suggest you that you go and watch our other videos about our life here at the cottage and slow living, relaxing vibes.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here, and we will see you in another video. Bye for now.
Bye for now.